Hey everybody, it's JacqBean coming back with another review. Today we're going to be reviewing the Walking Dead Dead City Episode 4. Episode 4 is entitled Everybody Wins a Prize. This episode pretty much centered around Maggie and Negan putting together a plan to go into Madison Square Garden or the Sanctuary in order to get the Crow-8. It centers around them. So it was a pretty good episode. I enjoyed it. So let's get to the review. So the episode started with Negan sitting inside the room, kind of mapping some things out, and you really kind of thought that it was current Negan as we know him right now. But of course, a knock comes on the door, and who walks in? Simon walks in, so you know that it was old Negan when he had his own version of the Sanctuary, and Simon was complaining about the Crow-8. It was actually that story that Negan had told Maggie about the Crow-8, him telling him not to hurt the girl. It was a child, but he did that anyway. So I think it's this story. Even Simon is like, this guy, he's crazy, he's a maniac, he's a psychopath, or whatever the things he called him. And, he's like, we really need to do something about him. And we see he and Negan walking down the hall, as we've seen them in The Walking Dead when they were going to Daryl's, prison cell or to Sasha's cell. They get there, and of course the girl is dead. He had tortured her, and you can tell that Negan is just shocked and horrified by, what he had did to her. It's not that I don't think that they wouldn't have done it to other people, but they didn't do it to children. And if you really think about it, during The Walking Dead, when he had captured Carl, he never hurt Carl. But even as the Crow-8 looked at Negan, he was like, no, Negan, I needed to do this. We needed to make sure. We needed to, I don't know. But he believed that he was doing the right thing. He believed that he was doing this for Negan. He was doing it for the Sanctuary. And I do think part of what made Negan look so like, oh my God, he was horrified. I think it was because he had given this man a family. This was like his kid, he had lost his family. He came to Negan. Negan had kind of given him family, and he thinks he's doing this for Negan, and he absolutely may be. But then we get back to the group of them with the New Yorkers, Maggie and Negan, and of course it's the aftermath because he killed Luther, and I'm really not mad at him because I probably would have too. But everybody was looking for him, all of the New Yorkers. This was a member of their squad, somebody that they cared about and that helped them out. And they're just kind of like, well, did he leave? Because even the lady that picked up poor Jenny's little elephant, she said, well, I saw him on my way, saw him leaving when I was coming in. So so part of them is believing that he kind of, walked out and left on his own. And I think some of them is like, we're not going to wait for him. We're not going to look for him, So Negan probably is thinking that he's going to be able to get away with that. I don't know what he did with the body. He had to do something, but I didn't see him do anything in the last episode. But he's not there. Maggie's kind of looking kind of concerned, kind of looking at Negan on the side eye because she knows how he is. But they sit and put down a plan with the New Yorkers to determine how they're going to get into the Sanctuary in order to, make a plan for Negan to get the Crow-8 to come out, and then for him to get him to a specific spot so that they could kill him. But before they were leaving, he and Maggie were talking a little bit, and he was just telling her how he's kind of not looking forward to seeing the Croat because it's going to bring back the feelings for what he had for the things that he did. He's pretty psychotic, and that's saying a lot, even for some of the stuff that Negan had done. But then as they were talking, Negan is sneaking a little kind of a jar, I think it turned out to be beeswax or something, into his bag. And Maggie, while she acted like she didn't see him, she did see him, And ultimately, she just kind of went to him, pulled it out the bag, and he was like, let me explain. And he do have some explaining to do, but it's a good explanation. Luther wanted him and Maggie to leave, did not want to help them, didn't care, had gotten the wanted poster from Negan, of course, because he wanted to keep it for his private collection. And Negan was thinking about Maggie and getting her son. But she didn't want to hear it. She was just like, I don't want to hear explanations. And, and even Negan to a certain point said, don't tell me that you've never done anything that you need to explain. So I think it's still that push that while I know that Maggie doesn't want to be a Negan, she doesn't want to make decisions how he makes decisions, but she's not better than him. He's trying to let her know that she's not better than him. Because she has done those things as well. And she has. Not like Negan. But, Maggie will kill you if she have to. And so the team starts to go through the sanctuary, which is really, all of that building. It's the Madison Square Garden building, but it's also Penn Station, which is downstairs from the garden. And if you know anything about about Penn Station, that's where you get your tickets. So there are rooms. There's a room that just is full of people, and they're all at the part of the window that people can come up and buy tickets. So when they got through the tunnels, got into Penn Station, they started going into these rooms with many doors. But they were looking for people to see if Herschel was one of the people that they had in the chairs. They went through 2 or 3 of them. They didn't see him. But Maggie and Negan had walked forward, and they opened up a door, and it was a boy that looks like he was about Herschel's age. He was all bent over. He was dead and turning. And so Negan went over to lift his head. So he lifted up his head, and he could see that it wasn't Herschel. He let Maggie know, and there was such relief in her eyes. But he did kill the guy, and then they just kept going. So the plan was for Maggie and Negan, one, for Negan to lure the Croat down to the garage, for Maggie, and while Negan is luring the Croat to jump in the car, to jack a car, and for them to jump in the car together and keep going, and to bring the Croat out and get him to this area where they would be able to kill him. Head bashing time. But they also wanted them to make sure that they get the Croat there alone, for him to be alone. And I thought alone was just really asking for a lot, because if Croat is the boss, he ain't going no place alone. But I think the point was to get the Croat someplace alone where they can then go in and start tearing down the Barazzi, just making that, getting that group of people, killing them. So they go their separate ways, with Maggie going down into the garage. She had found the cab that she was going to get into, and she's ready to, pick the lock and get it all started, but there was actually keys in there. So she's sitting there, she's getting ready to start that taxi, and all of a sudden she kind of turns to the side, she's looking, and she sees Jenny there. She gets out of the taxi to go in to get Jenny. She's like, Jenny. But Jenny runs away. But Maggie does end up catching up with her. But of course, she's going away from what her task was, which was getting the taxi. Negan is, going up the stairs. He's trying to get to where he believes that the Croat is. And what does he start to do? Oh, he gets the fabulous Negan whistle. And it did stop Croat in his steps, and he stopped right there. He knew what that meant. He knew Negan was there, even though he knew Negan was there because of Armstrong. He especially knew that he was close, and so he kept doing a little whistling, trying to move around, hiding to the side, because of course you don't want to get caught. But then Croat wanted to play the game too, so he started whistling, talking to Negan, trying to figure out a way to get him out of there, to get him caught, for them to find him, hiding over by taxis, all back down towards the basement. He was trying to get them down that area so that they could get in the taxi, but of course Maggie wasn't down there, and he just kept trying to do what he could. So while Negan is trying to hide from the Croat, he starts to see a bunch of people come in that the Croat is sending out to look for Negan and to do other things, which we find out shortly that one of the girls that the Croat was talking to had cut on music, and that's how they get the walkers out. They get all of the walkers out. One of the things that Maggie and those guys had saw, that there was no Barazzi around. There were no people. It was nothing. It was empty. But then the music came on and you started seeing the walkers start coming through. They ended up being in that area where they have like the UFC, death match cage. And they all started coming. And so they had to fight. The big fight this week was that small group of people, including Tommaso and Aria, I think that's her name, and Maggie and Jenny. They were surrounded by all of these walkers that they had to kill. We did lose a few of the New Yorkers, Tommaso's people, but he made it through. I think at one point it almost looked like they had got him too, but he had made it through as well. But when you get back to Negan, all of those folks that's coming through, they're going to jump inside these cars. They're going to go outside, play their noise, and keep getting the walkers, keep them close to the sanctuary, the way the Croat always really likes to have all of those walkers around. So our folks fought through it. Negan didn't have to. He was still hiding around those taxis. Well, we don't know when he's going to have to show up. And as he was kind of going through, he was really kind of close to the Croat. But the Croat started working, I think, on one of them gas tanks that he has. And Negan slid by, but he saw him. And then he started to go behind him. He was just like, oh, there you are, I got you. And he kept coming after him. He was looking up and down and looking around, looking for him, looking over things, looking for Negan. And all of a sudden, he turns his gun around and he's pointing it directly at Negan. But guess what? Negan is pointing his gun at him. The interesting part is that it seems like that the Croat is happy to see Negan. I think that Negan is important to him because Negan, in his own way, he wants to, show Negan that he can do it, that I'm a big boy, Dad, I can do this, you taught me well. Negan only just wants the kid. He's just like, I'm just coming here to get him, thinking that the Croat knew that he was coming to look for Herschel. The Croat thought that he was coming for Armstrong. So he kind of brought Armstrong out there, and he's just kind of like, I will show you that you can trust me. And he they knocked Armstrong over the side where he was supposed to fall to his death, but he didn't. He kind of held himself up there, The Croat, wanted Negan to know that he didn't care about the ear. What he wanted him to know is that now you can join me and we have a new sanctuary and we can do this and we can make it right. We can make what you had better. Simon wasn't good. Simon wasn't good for you, and I know that you got to see that he wasn't the right person to be like your second hand, where in fact he did, but that's not even the point. Negan let him know that he really was looking for the boy. He was looking for Herschel, which Croat just let that run over the top of his head. He didn't care. But with Armstrong kind of hanging over the side, Negan actually put down his gun. He helped Armstrong to get up, which surprised the Croat because he was just like, yeah, but we can kill him. I want to kill him, So he helped Armstrong get to safety, and then they ran out of there. the Croat wasn't close enough to then to get them, he would have been able to shoot them, but he didn't do that. Negan looked back at him and Armstrong kept going forward. And they got themselves to a place where they could close the door. Negan had put down his gun, and he's just like, ooh, I can't, I can't even believe that we were able to get out of there. And of course he turned around and Armstrong has the gun on him, talking about that he did this and he did that, all of these different allegations, and that he needed to be executed immediately ×5 or something along those lines. But Negan just kind of looked up at him and said, you're completely a dick. And he's totally right. How is it that you can be helped by somebody, but you're going to be so blind that you're going to go and do your Marshall thing? I have to think that that's not what he's going to do, that he is going to kind of get with Negan to figure out how they get out of that mess. But we'll see. And the ending really also follows Maggie and the New York team as they find a way out of the sanctuary and away from all of the walkers that were after them by going through the sewers. So tell me what you think. Do you think that this mess that Negan got himself in by saving Armstrong and him still wanting to kill him is really what's going to happen? Because something tells me that it's not going to happen. Either Armstrong is gonna, have a come to Jesus moment and just work with Negan to get them both out of there because the Croat is a crazy person and tried to kill him as well. Or, Negan got his way around Luther. He might find a way even if Armstrong still wants to do that. And, maybe that's the last we get to see of him. I can imagine that Maggie and the gang are going to get out of go get back to where their hideout is through the sewers. It didn't seem like it would be anything that should stop them. They did lose quite a few people that came out with them. And how will Jenny kind of work with Maggie? She was able to capture her, but I don't know if Maggie had ever burnt up the dinosaur that they had. I don't remember seeing her do it in any episode and don't remember it being part of the conversation in this episode, but probably wouldn't be because it's not really important when you think about everything that was happening here. We'll definitely see next week. If you're liking the content, please feel free to subscribe and cut on notifications so you can see when the next video is coming out. I really enjoyed this. I think it's good. I think it's getting exciting. We only got 2 more episodes before it closes down for this season. And looking forward to being able to share all of that with you. So until next time.